I'm Michael Drives, and this is the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N all-wheel drive in Atlas White. The world of hot hatches just got a lot hotter. Now, N is the performance division of Hyundai, and this is the most powerful Hyundai ever made. What makes this car most amazing is that it's a complete package. Sure, Hyundai could have just slammed in a larger battery and a bigger motor, maybe some fancy tires, and called it a day. But no, this has changes from the body all the way out to the edge of the fenders. And I'm going to go through those performance enhancements in this video. Now, I have reviewed the Ioniq 5 in the past, and I was blown away by its looks, its styling. So not only does it look good, but people notice you when you drive down the street. They smile, they wave, they point to your car. The technology in that car was fantastic, and the comfort and the features were great. Now add a high performance version and you've got something truly special. This car is not a sleeper. It certainly looks the part, and I think it's very nicely restrained as far as the design, but under the hood, or I should say under the body, because this is all-wheel drive and it's electric, this car packs 641 horsepower. Let me repeat that, 641 horsepower. Now, in normal driving, you actually have 601 horsepower on tap, but there's a special button, and I will show you this, to tap into that extra 40 horsepower that'll last for about 10 seconds until it needs to kind of cool down and reassemble itself. But it's like an extra boost, an extra kick in the butt of what is already a fantastic, highly powerful car. Now, this review is going to focus almost specifically on the performance attributes of the Ioniq 5N. So Hyundai actually designed a higher power battery for this car, and it's an 84 kilowatt hour battery, which is just slightly above what you would get in an all-wheel drive regular Hyundai Ioniq 5. So the range on this car is actually down a bit from the regular Ioniq 5, and that's because you've got much larger wheels, you've got more powerful motors, and a bunch of other things that contribute to a bit of a lower range. So this car tops out at 221 EPA estimated combined miles. Of course, even in a high-performance internal combustion car, you're going to have a lower range than you would its sort of everyday sibling. As far as energy efficiency goes, this tops out at 78 miles per gallon equivalent, and that's actually phenomenal when you think of what another hot hatch would be if it had an internal combustion engine. You'd be lucky to get 20 miles per gallon, 78 miles per gallon equivalent. So have your fun all day, go home, plug it in, and have some more fun for just a few pennies. Now, the charging speeds on this pretty much match what is in the regular Hyundai Ioniq 5. The level 3 charging, the DC fast charging speed, is going to go 20 to 80% in just 18 minutes. And that's if you connect to a 350 kilowatt charging station. Level 2 charging, say from 10 to 100%, will take 7 hours and 20 minutes, and that's what you would have in your garage. Pricing-wise, there are no trim options in the Ioniq 5N. The car simply starts at $66,100. This version, with this Atlas White paint and floor mats, tops out at $68,155, including destination. For comparison, that's about $13,000 starting price over the non-performance Hyundai Ioniq 5 Limited. As far as safety ratings are concerned, the IIHS and NHTSA have not tested the 2025 Ioniq 5N. However, for 2024, in the non-performance Ioniq 5, IIHS gave it a top safety pick plus, and NHTSA gave it 5-star overall rating. As far as active and passive safety equipment, the 5N has everything that the regular Ioniq 5 is. You're not giving up anything to get the high performance version. You're still getting all of the driver safety and assistance features that you would have in the regular 5. So a lot of times with a high performance car, you're kind of on your own when it comes to warranty. You get very low basic warranty. Hyundai has America's best warranty. So this car, the entire car, is warranted for 5 years or 60,000 miles. And then your high performance motor and battery, they're warranted for 10 years or 100,000 miles. And if something happens on the side of the road, Hyundai's got your back with 5 years, unlimited miles of roadside assistance. Now let's jump into the fun stuff. What makes the 5N different from the 5? Well, first of all, it starts before everything is added to the car on the assembly line. The 5N has additional welds, additional adhesives to make the whole body structure stiffer. And you'll notice there is no glass moonroof or glass sky roof or whatever you want to call it on top of the 5N, because that's to make it super stiff. You've got to start with a stiff structure to handle all this power, handling, and braking. So let's take a look at the design. Looking at the front of the car, you've got this fully unique front air dam that is unique to the 5N, and you've got N badging here, and then you're going to see this all the way around the car, front, back, side, inside and out, these orange accent striping, that's signature to the Hyundai's N brand, and you'll see it down here as well. And of course, you've got full LED lighting all the way around the front and the back. It's this matrix pixel that is a Hyundai signature design element these days. And we're going to walk around to the side of the car, and I'm going to show you some really unique elements there. Now, it's important to note, you've got the stiffer body structure, you've got these unique design elements that are actually tuned toward performance, and then you've got a higher horsepower motor front and back, and you've got a larger battery. Coming over here to the side of the 5N, you can really appreciate these visual difference and how striking this car really is. Now, coming up here from the front air dam around the side, we've got these 21-inch wheels. Now, they're not only just large 21-inch wheels, but they're wider than the regular 5. So you'll notice that the corners of the car, these fenders, are pushed out, and that actually gives the car a wider width of about 2 inches. This car is actually a bit longer because of the front air dam and the rear diffuser, which we'll see in a second. It's a bit wider, and it's actually 0.79 inches lower to the ground than the regular 5. So moving on beyond these big front wheels, and by the way, these 21-inch wheels have much larger brakes in here, front and back, so they're actually purposeful. Coming over here to the side, you've got side skirts down here along the bottom that are unique to the N. And then moving to the back, you've got, of course, your large fenders again, but it's important to note, while you can't see it, that there's an electronic limited slip differential in the back of the 5N, as well as electronically controlled suspension, which you also can't see, but it's important to note that they're in here as well. Moving on to the back here, you'll see that the 5N has a huge rear diffuser, and that really gives it that almost a little over 3 inches of length on the car because it sticks out beyond the bumper. This is very large rear diffuser, but it's functional. You still get your rear wiper in this car, and you've got this large spoiler up top, but what is unique with this spoiler, besides it being very large, is that it has this center high-mounted stoplight that is an N design. So you've got these design cues all the way around. Again, your full LED lighting across the back. So it really looks sharp, it looks the part, but it's not obnoxiously ostentatious, and I really appreciate the restraint that they had to make this an everyday driver and civil enough looking, but also quite a bit striking and different than the regular 5. Jumping to the back of the 5N, you still get all the functionality that you do in the 5. So you've got a flat load floor here. You can flip down the seats if you need to for a little extra room, but you cannot flip these seats down from the cargo area. You have to go into the rear seat and pull the handle on the side of the seat. Below the floor here, we have some storage, and if I just lift this little guy up there, I got slippery gloves here, you can see, you can kind of pull that up out of its slots, and you can see there's not that much space underneath the floor. You've got enough for a tire mobility kit, a few accessories if you wanted to hide them down here, and of course your level 1 mobile charger is in there as well. I'm going to put this back in its slot, kind of wrestle it back into its slot. There we go, I can do that. Now, there are also little slots down in here, so if I wanted to do that, I could do that, which is nice, so you're kind of not fumbling, you can kind of get it out of the way, access your things down here, and then when it's time to put it back, you just kind of put it almost to flat, slide it in there and down. There is one light back here to light up your cargo area, and then of course you have a 12-volt accessory outlet in the back if you need to plug in an air compressor or something. Now I've gone ahead and pulled the hood release on the inside, so all I need to do is reach down in here, flip this little lever, and the hood is held up by struts. Now down in here you can see that there is no frunk, so there is zero storage in the N version of the Ioniq 5, when the Ioniq 5 actually had a little bit of space under here, just a little bit. I stress that part. You have your coolant for the powertrain, and you've got your windshield washer fluid, and your 12-volt battery is over here, and that's pretty much all that you need to access underneath here. You've got brake fluid as well. That's about it. So let's close this up and take a look at the charging port. Now to access the charging port, you're just going to push your little finger here on these 5 pixels and up it goes. So looking in here, you can see that there are more lights, there are more pixels. This actually indicates the charge status of the battery. So I've got 3 out of 4 levels of charge in the battery. Now another big thing, Hyundai had said they were going to switch to the North American Charging Standard, or NACS, or Tesla, will you, charging standard, but this has a CCS combo port still. So you can use your regular J1772 and then you can DC fast charge at any non-Tesla station. I believe an adapter will be coming at some point and you'll be able to charge at a Tesla supercharger in the future. And then future Ioniq 5s and 5Ns and all Hyundai products will have a NACS port here. They are, with an adapter, interchangeable, but for right now we have the CCS charging port. So to close this, I'm just going to give it a little push down. It's going to close, and let's hop in the car and see what it looks like from the driver's seat. Welcome to the interior of the 5N. The biggest thing you're going to notice is these lightweight sport seats that really have phenomenal side bolstering and hold you in. Not only are they lightweight sport seats with this H-Tex fabric, so you've got sort of suede, ultra suede-ish inserts in the lower part and then a synthetic material on the outside, but they're actually lower in the car by another 0.79 inches. So not only is the car lower, but the seats are lower in the car than the 5. Additional functional sporty elements that the car has is down here. You'll see that there is a big padded bolster here for your knee or shin or whatever is going to hit against there. And then down here where the pedals are, you've got a footrest and you've got your accelerator and your brake, and they're super extra grippy. They're covered in this like rubber material that for when you're on sort of a track day or performance driving, your feet aren't going to slip all over the place. So actual functional things in this car that make it a true performance car. Moving over here, of course, you can't miss this end steering wheel, and I'll switch over to this seat so you can get a better view of that. Now here is that 5N steering wheel I was telling you about, and you can see it's super unique, and there are so many levers and buttons and switches on here, but it's actually pretty simple once you figure out what they all do. Now I'm going to turn the car on, and to do that, put my foot on the brake, hit that EV start stop button. You will see the car energize, and there we go. So some really unique things about the 5N, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly, but you've got your drive mode. So it has normal driving mode, but if you hit it again, you're going to jump into sport mode, and that really changes things as far as driving dynamics with the acceleration, the braking, the steering, the suspension. You still have your regular eco mode. If you are trying to get to the next charging station, say you've had a hard day of driving and you're just moving to that charging station, you want to conserve energy, you can do that with eco mode and drive a little bit more gingerly, and you're going to get there. You're not going to be doing a lot of gingerly driving in this car because it's so freaking fun, and I will show you that shortly. Now, you do have these paddle shifters up here, which can adjust the regen, but there's also some super crazy mode where it will emulate a gasoline-powered car, and you can use those as shifters. And it doesn't just change the sound, it changes the way the car feels. You can feel a synthetic feeling, a fake feeling of a clutch engaging, and shifts and downshifts, and it is all very visceral. It is really crazy. You have to drive this car. My words cannot do it justice explaining what these do. Now, moving on down here, you've got these N buttons that are going to handle the presets of what your N mode is, so that you can kind of change with your preference 1 or preference 2 or whatever that is. Moving up here, this button that's screaming at you says NGB, and that means N Grin Boost. This is how you get that extra 40 horsepower. So if I were driving and I put the car into drive, this is the gear selector here, I'm going to roll that forward, and I hit NGB, it is going to give me 10 seconds of 641 horsepower. Now, when those 10 seconds are up, it's going to, I can release this now and shift back into normal mode. It's going to go back to that lowly 601 horsepower. The electronics in this car are really what make it unique. I'm going to go back into park here so that I can demo what's over on this screen. And this is where it gets really different and really cool. So you have this N mode up here, and I can go into N mode. Sorry, these gloves aren't the best. Come on, N mode. There we go. So here is where it's super unique, and you can really make all these fine-tuned adjustments. So you can adjust your torque distribution. Now I can do this now, but it's going to give me all sorts of warnings saying I need to be on a dedicated racetrack. A lot of disclaimers, their lawyers got these in here, but I'm not going to do this because I'm not on a racetrack, and when we drive, I'm not going to jump into these. Sorry for that spoiler alert. Whoops, got a little excited there. But you can use N pedal, and what N pedal does is actually prioritizes sharp steering through corners and overall corner feeling as opposed to like maximum efficiency. N race will give you two different modes. If I turned N race on, there's a few different ways that this will work. And again, I've got all those warnings and whatnot. I can't go into that mode right now for various reasons. And then the N drift optimizer will actually give you optimized drifting capability. Now, over here you see the torque distribution. You can adjust the torque in 11 different steps from the front to the back, whatever you prefer, and you've got a lap timer, and this can tell you where you are on a certain circuit. It's pretty in-depth and pretty crazy. Before I flip from that, you've got your N battery. So you've got a drag mode where you can adjust the battery to give maximum power all at once for a short sustained burst. But then you've got track mode, and if you turn track mode on, it'll actually keep the battery cooled for sustained performance on a track. Oops, I'm hitting my brake pedal just a little bit there. If I switch over to this other screen, now this is where I can adjust those two custom buttons for how I want the car to drive. With the motor, I can go and we can just look at what these settings are. You've got Eco, Normal, and Sport. So you can have it in Eco mode, but you can have it sound really sporty and loud and have a sharp suspension or a soft suspension. You can dial it all in here. Of course, you've got your G-force indicator here, which also will record the patterns. You have launch controls, so you can actually have the most aggressive launch possible. And then you have even more options in here. And you can change your road grip levels. You can adjust that suspension and whatnot. There are so many performance settings. It's a bit overwhelming at first, but you can actually dial it in super tightly to what you want. You've got the launch control, you've got the NE shift that will make it feel like you're driving a gasoline-powered car. That's that shifting. You can actually feel the car shift. It's sort of faking that it's an internal combustion engine. If you go to the N sound, ignition will make it sound like a 4-cylinder high-performance engine. Then you've got evolution, which says it sounds futuristic. I think it sounds really weird. And then you have supersonic, which is supposed to sound like a jet fighter. In everyday driving, I find these sounds very annoying. However, I would definitely use them if I were performance driving on a track or whatnot, because you get feedback, you get audible feedback, which you don't always have on the road in a high performance driving situation in an EV. So this really helps you judge where you are in your throttle position or your accelerator position, etc., braking, and all of that. And then you can precondition the battery if you're going to do drag or track, so that the battery is at the optimal temperature. Of course, you have N pedal. That's what makes you be able to transfer load, and it shifts the load around so that you have phenomenal cornering. You've got drift optimizer, N race, and torque distribution, where you can activate that and change the distribution of the torque to be where you need it. So many settings here, but I wanted to show you what is super unique about this car, and it's all available through this N mode here. Now, of course, you've got your regular things. You can see your EV, your battery percentage, and all that, you know, like a typical Ioniq 5N, EV, etc. But, or like a typical Ioniq 5, I should say, and then everything else that you would have in a normal Ioniq 5. Back in here, just a few other things about the interior. You can see that it has this blue stitching here, and you've got a little stitching up here on the dash. Coming down here, you still have all those electronics. You've got physical buttons for your HVAC, well, actually your audio up here, and then you've got sort of touch capacitive buttons for the HVAC. You do have a charging pad here, which is a nice grippy charger. So you can do your wireless charging. You've got 2 USB-C ports there. One will connect to the audio system. You have another USB-C port here and a 12-volt port here. Of course, you've got cup holders. And oh, just one more racy nod, that little strip of pixels down there. And you can see, unfortunately it's not nighttime, but the speaker is glowing orangish red, and along, you can kind of see there's a little bit of orange glow from behind the armrest for the passenger. That's true for the passenger and the driver. There's a lot of sporty touches in here. So let's hop in the back seat. I want to show you that quickly, and then we can finally get to the drive portion. Before we hop in the back seat, I wanted to show you a couple more things. Here are those super grippy pedals that I was talking about down there. And then of course you've got this N design of the door sill. But I wanted to point out too that the seats are manual. To save weight in this car, you've got manually adjustable front to back, you've got manually adjustable height, and then you can manually tilt the back of the seat. This keeps them super lightweight. Welcome to the back seat of the 5N. You'll see that you have good view of the awesome driver seats from back here with N badging on the back, but it's a very minimal back seat. You still have the same seat materials that you have in the front, but of course there's no side bolstering, so you want to be a little bit conscientious of your back seat passengers if you're trying to drive aggressively. Of course, if you're on a track, you're probably not going to have any back seat passengers in the car. I mean, you still have some features back here. You've got cup holders if you're on a road trip or headed to a track or some performance driving event, or just hauling the kids home from school. So you have comfort like that, and then you still have 2 USB-C ports down here in the center console. And because this is an EV from the ground up, you have a fully flat floor here in the back. Remember, I am 5'9", and look at the legroom here. I have not adjusted these seats. They're normal position, right? Pretty much almost aligned with the B-pillar, and there's a ton of room in the back because it's still an Ioniq 5. It's just a high-performance version of that car. You don't have any, HVAC controls back here, but you do have vents in the B-pillar, so whatever it's dialed to up in the front for the driver is what you're going to get back here, but you can shut this off if you want to. If someone's getting too much air or not enough or whatever's happening, you can adjust it at that point. So let's finally hop out of this car and hit the road. Welcome to the drive of the 5N. So we're put in drive and we're rolling off, and you may be able to hear a little bit of the pedestrian warning sound. However, it's very much an EV. It's silent, and I'm just in the normal driving mode, and I don't have any of the fancy sounds turned on per se. What I will do is just show you, if you're everyday city driving, you can just sort of drive like normal, and it's a totally fine, comfortable, fairly quiet car that also goes really fast if you push the pedal. You will hear a little bit of rattling during this video. The particular car, the hatch seems to be needs a little bit of adjustment, so there's a little rattle back there. I checked and everything is secure. Just a disclaimer. So, of course, when driving in these roads, you do feel a lot more than you would in the Ioniq 5 as far as the road surface, and you want that in a performance car. So I'm not dinging this car for that whatsoever. It's very grippy and it handles extremely well. And these short turns, however, you are going to feel the road imperfections. So I'm just going to head down this way, and if I wanted to just hammer it, I can do that, and it's going to catch my breath. It's going to just go. That was just the 601 horsepower. It was not in sport mode, but it will do it. If I switch over to sport mode and I just flick the paddle there on the left with my left thumb, I can do that. Of course, it's very sunny right now. And I can break those wheels, those tires loose any old time I want just by mashing that pedal. Now, I'm trying not to go very fast where I am, but I can get to 25 miles per hour in a split second. So if it takes 0 to 60, let's 0 to 60, I think the Hyundai says 3.3 seconds. It's like 1 second or less to get up to that 25 miles an hour. The car will just do it. It just wants to go. So you're just driving along, and say I want to go into NGB. I really want to get that N grin boost. And I'm just driving and it's 10 miles an hour and I'm like, okay, the light turned green, I want to go. It's so stupidly fun. You have to love it. It is enjoyable to drive safely. I want to take this car on a track so badly, but I am not on a track, so I've made my own little mini track here. But the car has so much go. So when you're out on the freeway or you're out headed, out of town, when you can get out of the city, this car just really gets into its element, where there are twists and turns, mountain road driving. You can have so much fun, and then you get to a track in a controlled environment and you can really get your money's worth with this car. But even if you never go to a track, you're still gonna have more fun in this car than just about anything that I have driven lately. I cannot recall. Super bumpy, terrible pavement through this section here, so my apologies. Actually, I'm not the one in charge of paving this, so it's really not my fault. But it doesn't make for the best video. We can get on some smooth, beautiful country roads and we can really let it open up. And if I want to go to eco, again, I'm just going to tap that button on the dash and that's going to put me in eco mode. And now I'm very conservative in my electron usage and I'm very mindful, very demure. But when I want to be really naughty, there are buttons to do that in this car. And you just get a big smile, or as others would put it, a shit-eating grin, driving this thing even 3/10 of its limit. It's just so much fun. Last night I did a drive that I loathe, and it just kind of was like, oh, it's got to get through town and on the freeway and across the freeway and go from one freeway to another freeway. What might be someone's typical commute. It's not normally mine, but I make this drive every now and then. And last night it went by like that because it was so much fun, and not because I was going fast, or than the speed limit. It's just that every time I hit the accelerator, this car put a huge smile on my face, and that was just too much fun. Every time I wanted to do something, the car did it with precision and grace, and I never felt out of control. I think back to the day when I was, younger, and there was the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. So it has a high horsepower car, something like 300 horsepower, twin turbos, but it was actually very controlled, and you weren't going to wrap it around a tree as easily as you would a rear-wheel drive car that was high performance of the time. I actually need to turn around here because I've come to a dead end. So again, being a 5N or an Ioniq 5, it's just very small, very easy to maneuver, and you do get a great 360-degree view camera, so you can see anything around the car, which is really helpful when you're parking this car too, because you don't want to curb these gorgeous 21-inch wheels with the really fat tires. They stick out normal than a regular Ioniq 5, and so you want to be mindful of the extra width that this car has, and be very careful when you're parking it. And that 360-degree view, simulated view from above, will absolutely help with that and keep your wheels looking good when you're driving in the city and you need to parallel park. So I think I'm still in eco mode. So I'm gonna go back to normal. So you click it into normal and you get a little boost of energy. You put it into sport and you get all the energies. That transmission, or sorry, not transmission, that suspension, that electronically controlled suspension tightens up, the steering tightens up, the throttle response is phenomenal, and everything just really clicks and aligns so that you have the best driving performance possible out of the car. Now I'm at a stoplight, but I'm going to switch into the NE shift. Now the NE-shift is not any shift, but NE shift is what simulates a gasoline powered car's shifting. So if you had I think it's a 7 or 8 speed automatic transmission, dual clutch, it's emulating. I'm gonna hit the button, you're gonna hear a kind of a rumble because I'm on no sound right now. So listen. And I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a little like blah, 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 blah. So when the light turns green here, I'm gonna sort of just jump across this intersection and you'll be able to hear shifting. Here we go. Now those 10 speakers inside the, or 10 speakers in the car, 10 inside I believe, and 2 outside for a total of 12. So outside people outside your car can actually hear the car shifting, which is kind of fun, kind of silly. Now I can use the paddle shifters and kind of blip it down, and it's like vroom, vroom. But it actually, so when it even backfires and it retards the shifting, or the ignition, it actually pulls you back as if it were an actual car hitting the red line and saying, no, I can't go anymore. It's kind of fun. I thought I'd really hate that. I don't. Let me get around this corner here. And I'm just gonna do it some more because it's a little silly. Oh, another red light. Oh good, another red light. That means I get to, I'm not gonna use the launch mode because I'm on city streets, but I can make that rum 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 sound when I'm going up the hill. And it's kind of cool. In 20 years, people may be wondering what we were thinking or what Hyundai was thinking when they were doing that. But the nice thing is you can turn it on or you can turn it off. Here we go. Oh, I suppose I need to do the shifting now. So I have to do all the shifting. I can make this go into automatic mode. I think if I hold down the paddle now, it's doing its own, geez, it's bright. It's doing its own shifting, and it's just shifting, because not really shifting. There's no gears in this car. It's just doing what is programmed to do and what a gas car would do. So you can have all the gas car noise without the fumes, without the maintenance, and without the expensive premium fuel cost. I think that's pretty cool, actually. So we're talking. Watch out, Mr. Squirrel. And I'm only going 15 miles an hour, but it sounds like I'm going much faster just because I can make the noises. It sounds a little bit like more refined than a 4-cylinder. It's not harsh. It's like an electronic 4-cylinder, so I actually like the sounds. Rum, rum, rum. And just flipping those paddles, it's actually engaging, and it's so much more engaging than an actual internal combustion engine with paddles, because I'm always disappointed. I'm just like, I should let the car shift by itself because it's gonna know what to do, and this paddle thing is just gonna give me more wear and tear on the car. Not in this car necessarily, I mean, because it's all fake. And this would be really fun on a track. Like, I totally get it, because you want to hear what the car is doing. Even if it's simulated, you're getting feedback. And that's really handy. So I'm going to make a wide right turn here, mindful of those rear wheels. And now we're going by the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. So I'm going to turn all this noise off and be respectful of the neighborhood and the neighbors now at this point. And that's a great thing. All that silliness is now off, and I'm in a regular car, and I can just, launch my Apple CarPlay and listen to music and do whatever I want. So much fun can be had in this car. I think you're never gonna understand this until you get behind the wheel, you shift it into sport mode, and do your same normal, boring daily drive. It's not gonna be normal, and it's not gonna be boring, and you're gonna wanna drive it every day. That concludes the Performance Ioniq 5N drive. I really wanna hop this up on the highway, and you can imagine it's just doing what I'm doing with the sounds that I'm doing at a higher speed. But I digress. I want to get to my fabulous favorites and not so favorites about this car and give you a quick summary, and that's what I'm going to do now. And now it's time for my fabulous favorites and not so favorites about the 5N. Fabulous favorite number one, the crazy performance of this car. It is so fun to drive quickly but safely on public roads. But take this thing on the track and it's a whole nother experience, I would imagine, because I haven't had it on the track. But there's so many options and buttons that say track only, track only, track only. You can really dial it in on a track, and I think you're gonna really change some minds about EVs if you have somebody as a passenger in this car or driving it. Fabulous favorite number two, The styling is very sporty, but it's also mature. It doesn't scream, there's like no spoiler coming out here in 3 different levels. It's not silly, it's very purposeful, and it's restrained, and I really like that. I wouldn't feel embarrassed driving this car, even at my age. My final fabulous favorite, the technology in this car. You're not taking a penalty by having the high performance version. So you still have a very luxurious or sophisticated interior, I should say. It's not quite luxury. It's pretty darn sophisticated. And you have all the active and passive safety equipment that you would have in the non-performance version of the 5. And now my not so faves. So a Model 3 Performance will actually come in at under $55,000 as a starting price, and it says 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Now, I don't think you have this level of adjustability and refinement in all of the controls in that Model 3, but it's just something to keep in mind. Also, at the high 60s where this stickers, you're very close to a Lucid Air in pricing. So it's just something to keep in mind. Yes, that's a totally different car. It's larger, it's luxury. It's what you can get for your money. Another not so fabulous favorite is that it still has the CCS charging port. It would be nice if this car had the NACS, the North American Charging Standard port, which all the future models will have. It just feels like it's a brand new car with all this high-tech stuff and then a slightly legacy bit of technology in the car. Final not so favorite, you do take a hit to range where you've got 221 estimated EPA miles of range. Now you could probably do better if you're driving eco mode and bump that up a little bit, but just with the design of the car, it's a performance car, it's going to consume more energy. If you think of the regular all-wheel drive Ioniq, let's say in the limited trim, you're going to get something like 270 miles of range out of that, and you'll get even more range if you have a front-wheel drive only version. That's not what this car is about, and I don't know why I'm dinging it for having a lower range. That's still a ton of fun that you can have with a battery charge, but if you could have 300 miles and a ton of fun, as batteries get lighter, we'll see that in the future, but just something to keep in mind. You've got 221 miles. That brings me to the end of this video. If you liked the video, just hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, that'd be great. But even better, you can subscribe to the channel. You'll get more videos like this, and I'll be able to do more videos like this. Thank you again for sticking to the end. Have a wonderful day and drive safely.